you're from West Virginia.
Yes.
So tell us how you came down to Jacksonville.
I came here in the Navy. I was out at the Naval Air Station for 3 years during the Korean War. And when I got out, I just decided to stay in Jacksonville.
So when did you go to law school?
I went to law school in, fall 1950.
So that was before you came to Jacksonville?
Oh yes, I had graduated from law school before I went in the Navy and came to Jacksonville.
So that was like a Navy JAG program that you were in?
The Navy didn't admit that they needed lawyers back in those days. I was actually in a legal billet, but they didn't. It wasn't JAG.
So then, did you get a job with a law firm in Jacksonville?
Yeah. As soon as I got out of the Navy, I went to one firm in Jacksonville, and stayed there for the whole 20 years that I practiced law.
What firm was that?
Oh well, when I was there, it was called Mahoney, Hadlow, Chambers, and Adams.
Okay. And you were in the chambers?
Right. Yes.
Well, good. Well, I was familiar with your law firm because I had my first legal job working for the Barnett Bank.
Oh, sure.
And they hired me as a collection attorney. And so they gave me 4,000 people to sue in 1 year.
Now, what year was that?
About 1970.
70? Well, I was general counsel for Barnett from about outside in the firm, from about 1961 to 1976. And that's when I left the law firm.
To go with the Barnett Bank in 76?
No, I left the law firm and went with Charter.
That's it. Well, we have been told that this table used to belong to the Barnett Bank.
Oh, is that right?
Their boardroom. I'm not sure whether it was the Barnett Banks of Florida or it was the Barnett Bank of Jacksonville boardroom.
Well, they were one and the same. And this table does look like it.
Well, Murray Jakes came in and he said, oh yeah, that's it. It used to be in the Barnett Bank, and the person we bought it from said he got it from the Barnett Bank. And it has somewhere a label says Barnett Banks of Florida and a little number on it or something.
That was back in the days when Guy Botts was the head of Barnett. He had been the senior partner of our firm before he went to Barnett.
Well, now, so in 1976, you retired from your law firm, and you said you became the general counsel of Charter Company?
I wasn't a lawyer after that.
Oh, so what did you do with Charter?
I was a chief financial officer and then the chief operating officer, and I only stayed there about a year and a half. Quit, and then I went with a company called Gulfstream Land and Development in Fort Lauderdale, where I was CEO, and I stayed there about 8 or 9 years till we sold the company very successfully. And after that, I worked briefly for a company in Miami, and then I came back to Jacksonville. What got me back to Jacksonville was going with the Koger Company, which went into bankruptcy almost immediately after I got there.
Gosh.
No fault of mine.
Well, so how long were you with the Koger Company after that happened?
Somewhere between 2 and 3 years.
So you kind of helped them work through the bankruptcy or something?
Yes, that's what we did. Howard Sirkin and I went there together, and we stayed from the time we got there to the end of the bankruptcy. And then we left as soon as the bankruptcy was over.
So was that pretty much the end of your career as working for other people, or did you continue on with something else?
I did a couple of things briefly after that, but not much.
But what was it like coming to Jacksonville and starting practicing law in the early 50s? What was Jacksonville like then?
You know, that's an interesting question and a good question. Back in those days, as you know, Jacksonville was the financial hub of Florida. 3 of the 4 biggest banks in the state were headquartered in Jacksonville. There was all kinds of insurance companies, the Southern Office of Prudential, American Heritage, Independent Life, Peninsular, and others that I don't think of right offhand. Carolina Life. And now all that's changed. Jacksonville is certainly no longer the financial hub of Florida. It's become more of a backroom company. Processes credit cards, mortgages, handles stock processing for Merrill Lynch. That's a big change.
It is a big change.
Mm-hmm.
But what was it like socially when you first came to Jacksonville as a young man? Were you married at the time? You were in the Navy, or did you get married after that?
I was married while I was in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was it kind of like when, socially for you and your wife when you were a young man in the early 50s in Jacksonville?
Well, of course, we didn't know a lot of people when we first got out of the service, but that changed rapidly. Jacksonville's a very friendly town, as you know, and it was easy to make friends. The Duval delegation to create a government study commission. And the Government Study Commission met for about 2 years. I think there were probably 65, or about that number, on it. And Jack Daniel was the chairman, and Lex Hester, who later was a lot of things in government, was the first executive director. And I was the volunteer, free, unpaid lawyer. The Local Government Study Commission recommended the consolidation that we now have. And we were just getting, the commission was just getting ready to present its report, and they weren't going to present a charter, they were just going to present a report. But all of a sudden, all the city and county officials started getting indicted. Ed Austin was the state's attorney, and he was bringing a lot of grand jury proceedings against, not all of them, but quite a few of them.
Was Marion Gooding the judge in charge of the grand jury at the time, or was it?
Marion Gooding was the judge then. I don't remember who was in charge of the proceeding. But because of all the indictments, we decided to present a charter along with the recommendations. So I went away by myself, along with a couple of young lawyers in the firm, and wrote the charter. There was only one other city-county government consolidated in the country at that time. That was Nashville. But
what were some other things that you've been involved with in Jacksonville you'd like to share with us?
I was involved in a lot of civic affairs. I helped create the Jacksonville Council on Citizen Involvement, which has changed a lot, but still exists. I was on the, what they call the Human Relations Commission, which really was involved in dealing with black-white relations.
Well then, where did you go to college?
I went to Duke.
And that was undergraduate?
Undergraduate and law school.
So did you meet anybody there that ended up in Jacksonville?
Well, I just barely met him, but Earl Hadlow was 3 years ahead of me. So he was in law school when I went to college. And by the time I got to law school, he graduated. And he was in the law firm that I went with when I got out of the Navy. And he and I were law partners for 20 years. And Bill Adams, the same way as Earl. The three of us were law partners, along with a fellow named Jim Mahoney.
Well, you had a very well-respected law firm.
Well, thank you. We did a lot of recruiting, which Jacksonville law firms were not doing back in those days.
How did you recruit?
Oh, an awful lot of them. Luke Sadler, Ken Keefe, Howard Dale, Ham Cook, Guy Farmer. I could go on and on. I think we had.
They sound like pretty good people to me.
Well, we had about 65 or 70 lawyers when I left.
So you were on the recruitment committee?
Off and on, yeah. But I was the managing partner of the firm for most of the time I was there. The young lawyers we recruited were a lot smarter than we were. So I used to tell my partners that we hire these smart guys and just get out of their way. And as for descendants, I just have one son who also is a lawyer in Washington.
Well, certainly appreciate you coming down and sharing this with us.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.